3 of Microsoft, getting started with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So if you haven't had the opportunity to see the previous sessions, so please, I urge you all to go back to our YouTube channel, look at the recordings, because only then whatever we are going to show today would make a lot of sense. But even though if you haven't seen it, that's still okay, because we plan and try to cover specific topics in specific sessions. So there is not really a continuity to these. So let's get moving. So myself, my name is Vignesh Ganeshan. I work as an enterprise architect and technology strategist. I'm also a Microsoft MVP for Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Security. And I'm also a Microsoft MCD. I've been in the industry for almost close to 13 plus years now. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Samik to introduce himself. Samik, over to you.
Thank you, Vignesh. And I'm just, as Vignesh mentioned, I'm just another MVP like Vignesh, based out of India, and I'm helping customer to implement the security from Microsoft at scale. So with that said, I'll give it back to Vignesh once again.
Thank you. All right, so this is something which we share in all these sessions that we do, because I just want to make sure that we are setting the right expectations for this webinar series. So the targeted audience are, you could be an M365 admin or an architect, or maybe you're somebody who's coming from the cloud world, the Azure world, and you could be a cloud engineer or a cloud architect or a solution architect. Or you could be somebody who's coming from an IT security background. And so no matter whichever background you're coming from, we do expect that you have a decent amount of understanding of Microsoft 365 and Azure services, because the sole purpose of this entire webinar series is just to focus on Microsoft XDR, and we are not going to talk about the basics of Microsoft 365 or Azure in this session. So the end goal is to make sure that you get yourself familiarized with all the Microsoft Defender XDR products, the implementation methods, licensing, and also some best practices from Microsoft, and also some best practices that we as architects have gained over the years by implementing this technology. So key takeaways, we want to make sure that you have a good, at the end of this complete series, we want to make sure that you walk out of this uh, series, making sure that you have a good understanding about Microsoft Defender XDR, all the different products and services in the suite. You also have a good understanding on why is XDR important for an organization which has good cloud footprints, and what problem XDR can solve for you, right? So, and as I always say in all the sessions, so whatever cloud security product that you're seeing from Microsoft as of today, they are just not meant to secure and calm a Microsoft cloud service alone. You can also extend them to a third-party cloud service. It could be Amazon Web Services, or it could be Google Cloud, right? Or it could be some other third-party cloud services. Also, you could still make use of this security solutions to secure the data which is stored on those services also. So we want to make sure that that's a takeaway that you walk out with at the end of this webinar series. So how do we plan to run this webinar series? So we are pretty much on the, I believe this is the 8th session on this webinar series. So the first 2 sessions were dedicated towards the introductory stuff. And from then onwards, we said, let's do a deep dive into each one of the products in the Microsoft Defender XDR suite. So we were planning about 12 to 15 sessions, but as and when we started to progress is when we realized that we might end up doing a lot more, because there is so much to cover and we won't be able to complete everything within 12 to 15 sessions. So these would be bi-weekly sessions, which we are planning to do on 6 p.m. IST on Saturdays. But due to certain personal reasons, we are not able to keep up with that schedule. But we'll try and make sure that, at least moving further, we stick to our bi-weekly schedule, and we try to deliver this, at 6 p.m. on Saturdays. So all these sessions, of course, they are going to be recorded and it will be published in my YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and see the recordings later, feel free to do that. So each session, we are planning to do this for 60 minutes, wherein the first 50 minutes of the session will be for the session in itself, wherein I'll be giving an introductory about what we are going to do in this session, what are the topics that we are going to talk about, and then my co-speaker Samik will be doing a deep dive demo on all the features and capabilities. Whereas the last 10 minutes would be more towards the Q&A, wherein you can unmute yourself and ask your doubts and get your queries answered. And also at the end of this session, we'll be sharing a Microsoft form for you to share your feedback and also to ask questions. So here's the agenda for today's session. I'll be just doing a quick recap of our previous sessions on MDE, what we covered on our previous sessions. But this very specific session, we want to cover about the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Plan 2 capabilities. So in the last two sessions, we briefly spoke about all the Plan 1 capabilities. So in this session, we want to focus on the Plan 2 capabilities. And then Samik will be doing a demo on all the MDE Plan 2 capabilities. And finally, I'll be sharing some useful links, and then we can open up for the Q&A. So these are the core capabilities of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Plan 1 and Plan 2. In the previous sessions, we spoke about all the different products in Microsoft Defender XDR Shoot. Some products have a Plan 1 and Plan 2 split up. Some products do not do. But Microsoft Defender for Endpoint has a Plan 1 and Plan 2 capability. Now, based upon which one might work for your business, you could choose you can choose the appropriate SKU and go for it. So in the last two sessions, we pretty much covered all the capabilities of MDE Plan 1. We also did demos about attack surface detection, the next-gen capabilities, manual response actions, centralized management, security reports, APIs, and also MDE is not something which is only meant for Microsoft Windows operating system. It can also take care of your iOS, Android, and Mac OS devices as well, and even Linux for that matter. So today what we are planning to cover is to focus more on the MDE Plan 2 capabilities, which means we want to talk about device discovery, device inventory, the core Defender vulnerability management capabilities. That is something which we want to park for a separate session. So our next session will be completely dedicated to core Defender vulnerability management, because that in itself is a huge topic, and we felt that we can't cover everything in this one single session. So we are parking that for the next session. So in today's session, we'll be talking about device discovery, device inventory, threat analytics, automated investigation and response, advanced hunting, EDR, endpoint attack notification, sandbox, and also the support for Windows, just not for Windows. And whatever talking about, it's also meant for your non-Windows platform as well. So with that, let's get started. So the very first capability under the MDE Plan 2 is your device discovery and device inventory. Now, as the name itself says, right? So what this basically helps you to do at a very high level is that is this capability in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint called as device discovery. It's basically going to help you to go and discover all the devices in your network which are currently not managed using your Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And the way it does this is, let's say there are about 100 devices. I'm just giving a typical scenario, right? There are 100 devices in your network, out of which you have onboarded only 70. And there are still 30 remaining which you haven't onboarded yet. So this capability called as device discovery is going to help to probe and scan and add in all those devices to your network so that you can start managing those devices also. And it's very important that you make sure that you have a device discovery, and using the discovery can also build an inventory, because you need an inventory to manage your devices, right? You need to understand, or you need to know what are the different devices are there in your environment. And when I say devices, I'm just not talking about the workstations alone. It could be any endpoint for that matter. It could be a network device, it could be a router, it could be a tab, it could be a kiosk device sitting somewhere, right? So all these can be scanned and you can build an inventory out of it. So the demo will be showing how you can go about it. A very quick video about this so that you can understand the capability quickly. I'm just going to play this. But before that, I just realized that let me just quickly share with the system audio. Just give me one quick minute. I'm going to stop and reshare again. Okay. Right. Sharing again. Sorry about that. All right. So let me play this video on device discovery so that you can understand about what is possible using this.
I'm going to show you how to assess and onboard unmanaged devices that Microsoft Defender for Endpoint discovered. In a previous video, I demonstrated how to discover unmanaged endpoints and network devices. That includes configuring endpoint discovery and performing a targeted scan for network devices. If you haven't watched that video, please do before continuing here. It's grand. After setting up Discovery, you're able to know what devices could be onboarded to Defender for Endpoint, but you haven't yet, for whatever reason. Know about these so you can assess their security configurations, onboard endpoints to the service, and identify software vulnerabilities. On the Microsoft 365 Defender homepage, you should notice two new widgets: Discovered Devices and Devices Discovered in the last 7 days. The first shows how many of each device type we found. The second summarizes our most recent discoveries. I'll start by looking at unmanaged endpoint devices. To see all the details, select Device Inventory in the navigation pane. The Endpoints tab on this page lists all the endpoints, managed and unmanaged, that we know about. For our use case, that's not terribly helpful. So, select Filters to filter the list by using the Onboarding Status column. Then, select Can Be Onboarded, Apply, to show just those devices that are ready to manage. Now you can click through to an Unmanaged Endpoints Details page to learn about it. Those details include essential information about the device, like its operating system version, IP address, and network activity. Because this device isn't onboarded, there's not a lot more to know about it, yet. But, at a minimum, we know the device exists and we need to bring it into the fold. To that end, on the Security Recommendations tab, you'll see an item that says Onboard Devices to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Select it to see the details. You could then select Open Full Recommendation, but I want to show you another way to get to the same place. The other way to get to the onboarding recommendation is to simply search for it on the Recommendations page. In the search box, type Onboard Devices to find the recommendation and select it to open the details. What you see here is the number of devices that need to be onboarded and the impact that the recommendation has on your overall exposure score. For a complete list of those devices, select the Exposed Devices tab. Now, I just need to get these devices onboarded to Defender for Endpoint. The problem is, that's not my job. The IT department handles that. I'm SecOps. But Microsoft 365 Defender works with Microsoft Endpoint Manager so that the flow works end to end. That is, it closes the gap between the security and IT teams. To get started, just select Request Remediation, and then choose a device scope. In this case, I'll select all device groups, but you could focus on specific groups. Select Next and fill out the remediation request. Those details include the remediation option, whether to open a ticket in Microsoft Endpoint Manager or ServiceNow, the remediation due date, priority, and any notes you need to provide to the IT staff. One of the great things about this end-to-end workflow is that you can track the progress of your request as the IT department works through it. On the Recommendations Remediation Activities tab, select the new remediation request to see important details like the remediation status, progress, and ticket status. You also find the same information combined with remediation requests for other recommendations on the remediation page. After the IT department onboards a device, it becomes managed, and you can circle back to assess richer information about it. For example, on the Security Recommendations tab, there are now many more recommendations to address. The Software Inventory tab lists the software we found on it, and the Discovered Vulnerabilities tab lists specific CVEs associated with the endpoint. We're more than just endpoints. We can also help you assess network devices in your org. In our discovery video, you learned how to set up targeted network scans to find them. You see those here, on the Network Devices tab. Obviously, since you cannot install an agent on network devices, there's no Onboarding Status column. But you can click through to a device's details page to learn a lot more about it. Those details include essential information about the device, of course. But there's more. For example, the Security Recommendations tab lists security recommendations for it. The Software Inventory tab lists the software discovered on the device, and the Discovered Vulnerabilities tab lists specific CVEs associated with it. For example, this network device has vulnerabilities. Select one to see an overview, and then select Go to Related Security Recommendations to see all the recommendations associated with the CVE. The last step here is to contact your network administrators to address the weakness. or make any configuration changes required. Open a ticket in their ticketing system, since doing so in Microsoft Endpoint Manager doesn't make a lot of sense in this case. Defender for Endpoint helps you to discover, assess, and remediate unmanaged endpoints and network devices.
Right, so that was, I think that pretty much spoke in detail about what is device discovery and what it can do for you, right? So, and we also have a demo on that. We'll quickly show you what you can do that in our demo tenant, right? So let's keep moving forward. Next, we have the threat analytics. And threat analytics is something which is just not specific to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. It is common across all the different products in Microsoft Defender XDR, right? So it's basically, as the name itself says, it's a Microsoft's in-product threat intelligence solution from the security researchers from Microsoft, right? So of course, as we all understand, Microsoft being this huge security company, there are a lot of researchers who are constantly doing the research and understanding all the top threats that's out there, right? So all this information will be flashed under the threat analytics console, and you could see different cards such as latest threats, high impact threats, high exposure threats, and it also looks through all your Defender configuration, looks through all the assets and everything that you have deployed in your environment, and if anything is under risk, what are those threats that are coming. So pretty much everything is captured there. And when we are showing the demo, we'll click on a couple of these threats and we'll show you what actions you can take there. But this is basically meant for all the emerging threats which are out there, such as the active threat actors and their campaigns, popular and new attack techniques, critical vulnerabilities, common attack surfaces, and also the prevalent malware, right? So this is just basically a tool. And as I said, this is not something which is only specific to Defender for Endpoint. It's common across all the products that are out there for under the Microsoft Defender XDR suite. The next one is the automated investigation and response. Once again, this is also not something which is just specific to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. When I say automated investigation and response, AIR, we saw what you can do with this on the MDO also. If you can just go back and look at the Microsoft Defender for Office 365 session recordings, we did a demo on how you can use the AIR capabilities from MDO context, right? So what we are planning to show you today is how you can do an AIR from Microsoft Defender for Endpoint context. At a very high level, what this basically does as the name itself says, right? So as a security analyst, there will be so many alerts that you would be getting, right? And while you're working on a specific alert, there could be so many other alerts also which could be coming, and it could get to a point where it's too much, it's just overwhelming, and you just can't have control over it. So with automated investigation and response, right, it's pretty much you can configure, or the system itself understands that, well, this is the attack and this is the response that I need to take, and it sort of auto heals in itself. So which means it doesn't need a manual intervention. That's what you mean by AIR in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and we'll be showing a quick demo on that as well so that you can see it in action for yourself. The next piece that we want to talk about is advanced hunting. And this is also something which is just not specific to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. This is common across, and you can use this tool for MDO, MDE, MDI, and also the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps also. So basically, this is nothing but a query-based threat hunting tool, and you can just go back to 30 days of raw data, and you can start pulling in all the information that you need. There are two ways that you can use it. You can either use the guided mode or the advanced mode. So you can use the guided mode if you're not familiar with KQL. But if you're familiar with that, you could go ahead and use the advanced mode also. And we'll show you a quick demo on how to make use of advanced hunting. But just so you know, this is not specific only to MDE. Even the other products in Microsoft Defender XDR suite can make use of this. Then the endpoint detection and response in MDE, right? So basically what this does at a very high level is it constantly keeps looking, it's all the activities which are happening in your endpoint, right? So the way this is configured, it constantly needs to keep looking at it, what activities are performed, what kind of tasks are done, and if something malicious or something wrong is happening, it can capture that, right? So at a very high level, this is what it does. Let me see if I can just play a video on that so that you can understand in detail about what MDE can do for you. Just give me a quick minute. I don't think we have a video about that, but any which ways we'll show that to you in action about what the endpoint detection and response can do for you, right? So with that, I'd like to give it back to Samik for a demo. So Samik, over to you to showcase all these capabilities.
Thank you, Vignesh. And I would like to share my screen. And if you could confirm, you can see it. And you should see the Defender screen now.
Yet to see your screen
I think you should see it now.
coming up. Yep, I can see it now.
All
Yep,
right,
yep.
thank you. So, as Vignesh mentioned right from the beginning, that with Defender, we have the capacity starting from device discovery to network discovery. And so for that, I would use the left navigation and come down to the section where it says assets and then go to devices. Then in devices, obviously, the default one is all devices. And you can see we have onboarded 2 devices, which are completely onboarded. Right now, there are tabs like computer, mobile, network devices, and IoT devices, and uncategorized. So, as the video says, or as Vignesh mentioned, right, the moment we have Defender, have Defender somewhere, you know, in some sort of network, right? It not only tells you that what are the devices there, it also gives you the basic information around that. For example, you have, let's say we have only one VNet where we have these 2 virtual machines. If we have like 3 or 4 more virtual machines with, let's say, any Windows Server operating system or any other systems wherein they are same and discoverable in the network, they're going to get discovered and listed here, not onboarded by default. But once we manually onboard or onboard through, let's say, Microsoft Intune and any other stuff, right? They're going to look like this, wherein you can look at the details, and you can see the sensor health is active and it says onboarded, right? And also there are some tags you can do. And based on our last demo, right, as we have set up Intune in an environment, so this also says that this is actually managed by Intune. All right. So that's the fundamental thing about how network discovery works. I would quickly jump on to computers and mobiles. So obviously, Defender for mobiles, available if you want to have something, or if you're using a corporate mobile device, you can do that, right? And that can give you some sort of alerting. For example, if you're accessing any open Wi-Fi or things like that to protect you from man in the middle and any other types of attacks. Now, in the network devices, obviously there is no network here, but if you have, let's say, a switch or a hub or things like that, right, it will definitely, show off here with the basic information and things like that. Same goes for the IoT devices, and there are certain things which are not supported, like they will come, let's say you have a very old version of Windows, they're going to come over here and show up these are uncategorized, right? Now, assuming that you are a small organization, you are doing the onboarding manually, or you are like mid or big size, wherever you are using something like MDM, or maybe Microsoft Intune, right? To onboard your devices to here. Um, Depending on that, you're gonna see all the devices here, and by default it's transient no, and then no excluded. And this also acts as a device inventory for your devices. That means it's going to anyway discover all your network devices present within the network. And it's going to also talk about what are the categories and fundamental details. Now, if we want to look at one specific thing, so I will click on demo PC2. um, and once I click on that, this is going to have something like a device page. And again, the moment it started getting into like the sensor installed in that machine, right, it's also have something like fundamental details around what is the overview, which is obviously any which ways is there. But apart from that, you can look at further more information. For example, a device ID, right, and a different device ID, different engine version, right? uh, Endpoint DLP status, it's not enabled yet. It's a valid user yes, advanced classification, past and to past 24-hour bandwidth has not been accepted, and things like that. On the right hand side, we can see a summary of the device health. Health in terms of not operating system or usage. It's a security health, like how many vulnerabilities and how much threats available and how much exposure level it is, right? And you have links to kind of go to the detail related to that host or that device or view our recommendation. And also it shows logged in users and who are the least logged in user. As we have been seeing only one user, this will make more sense if you are having a server operating system, right? The next tab here is incident and alerts. Obviously that's similar, right? Once you have any incident associated to this demo PC2, you're going to see that. Then obviously, I'd say timeline. Timeline is going to give you a time map of what is happening in that. So basically device process event and device event and things like that. And also something happening in Defender. For example, I tried to start automated investigation here, right? And obviously based on the data captured, it says that what are the vulnerabilities required here, uh, or what are the security recommendations required here, right? And the next one is inventories, where it's basically looked at what are the software inventories are, or what are the details available here. Then discovered vulnerabilities. This basically picks up all your CV specific data, which Defender has itself has its own repository and keeps on updating and then show you these details over here. And then if you have missing KB, so we are running on a cloud version, so and we are doing the patching on a regular basis within Intune, so you don't see any missing KBs possibly, but if you have, you would be seeing it. And again, you have security policies, right, which will let you know that what are the security policies available and should be there in the system, right? So for example, I have put in ASR policies for all those things, right? One is onboarding, one is ASR rule, and there's another ASR rule which is called attack surface reduction rules over here. And just to look at security policies, like you can have obviously it's an additional license with MVVM, which we'll be talking about in our next session, but to give you a advanced feature option, these are the other things also available. Now coming back to the detail here, right? Why do we call it, or why are we calling it as also the device inventory? So as you have seen, right, if I click on the devices, it's going to give me a list of devices. Not only here, we can also go to left navigation, scroll to the top and click on hunting and advanced hunting. So if we are not comfortable with the information we see in the user interface, let's say if we want to extract information at like scale for all the devices, like let's say they have 10,000 devices or more than that, you'd come here and you write a query here. And as Vignesh mentioned, right, if I click on a query, query builder or query editor. So query builder obviously will give you an experience wherever you are very new and you can select, drag and drop and build your query. But if you're getting used to, I will just close this pop-up for now, which is talking about different for cloud. But there's a query console, it opens and by default it's basically for 7 days. And one thing to remember here, this data stays there up to 30 days. So anything, for any case, either for auditing or for any other reason, right, if you want to store beyond that, you have to stream the data to either Event Hub storage account, or you can stream it to seem like Microsoft Sentinel. Having said that, let's say if we want to see the device event where this starts with ASR, or maybe we will simply go as device info, right? And you can see this is also IntelliSense equipped. That means it is automatically going to populate things. And if you also observe, when I wrote about Defender, right, or sorry, device, it's going to give me other table details also, right? So let me just type it down and click on the run query button, and this is going to give you details around device info. So just so that you understand, device info is kind of a heartbeat table which most probably checks in every 15 minutes, and all the devices wherever Defender sensor is installed, they're gonna come and tell this table that I'm alive, kind of heartbeat, right? So the ideal query would be, I'd say, summarize arg max and timestamp, because timestamp is the column here which maintains kind of an index with respect to time, and that's where the differentiator is. So and by device ID, right? And let me run this. So you can also use Shift Enter in your keyboard if you're running it. As I said, right, you have seen only two devices there in let me get some more space. In the device inventory, you're going to see two tables with latest entries, and I'm going to click on one of them. Let's say demo PC2. And if I scroll down, you're going to get all the information, whatever you need to. For example, it is we have also Active Directory setup. So it is also domain join. What is the AD device ID? What are the logged on users, right? And what are the additional fees? This is very interesting. Like it is an internet facing one because we have not covered it question. So anybody can RDP to the system, and which is intentional for the demo. And you can see it is internet facing, and when last in it is very recent because we have been working in the machine for the demo, right? And what is the port and what is the local IP and things like that. So this is the IP which is the IP for which is the IP assigned by the VNet where the virtual machine is hosted, which is in Azure, right? Also gives you version and exposure level and things like that. Now, another interesting part, there are a couple of other things, for example, public IP, right? Let's say we are seeing this public IP, I'm going to click on that. So because it's covered by Defender, right? Defender also does an assessment of that IP and then gives you as a hyperlink, which you can see details over in here itself, right? And really interesting piece is IP observed in organized devices. That means this is already giving you some sort of information that is it seen in last 6 months and things like that across other devices, right? So with that said, I'll try to close it here, and let's try to write some other queries. But before I do that, I'm going to utilize the left navigation, and if I scroll down, there are sections as I see, right? In the devices sections, these are the tables wherein we have all the raw data captured and consumed for or from all the endpoints for the device's sensor is onboarded. Let's say, as I talked about, device info, right, which is more of a heartbeat. And if I want to see the schema, we'd expand and it talks about the schema with like each data type, right? As you see, ABC is string, timestamp is time, and things like that. Now again, the next thing I would say device event. So if I let's expand device event, right? Let me try to write a query in device event, and as usual I would always like to write take one because that gives me schema as well as gives the sample data. There's one record, and if you look at timestamp, device ID, device name, because it's tied to the FQDN, what is the action driver load? Like for example, any device event happen, that's going to come and get stored here. And then the file name is obviously the sys file and drivers, and what is the SHA hash, SHA-256 and MD5 hash for that, and even what is the process creating the created process has. So technically you can see it is really a good amount of information which is captured by Defender already. It doesn't matter it's done by the user or the system. As you say, this is a system generated process, right? Now, the next table I would say you can look at, there are device file events, which talks about all the files we have in devices, right? Then if we want to dig down further, we have device image load events. We have device logon events, which talks about who are the login. And this basically captures both the logins, right? If it is, let's say domain controller join machine and you're logging that with an FQDN or your AD ID, right? Or UPN, you're going to see that event, as well as if you have a local login, you're going to see that. And then there is something called device image load event, as I mentioned. Also device certificate info, anytime a certificate is interacted and used, you can see that. Then the interesting piece is network events and network info. So there's a difference, right? One is anytime there's a network connection made, right? Or is a change, for example, somebody accessed from internet, somebody accessed within the VNet, right? Those are two different network info. So those are going to get stored there. Now, the next thing is once we connect, once the connection is built, then in that case, there are multiple events happen. So let's try to write device network events. And I would say this time let's take 5 to understand what kind of events they are. As you see, right, it talks about connection acknowledgement, network signature inspected. So all the network related transactions and traffic is basically connected also with the port number, right? So it is not only that you connect from internet or anybody connects from internet. It is basically as a whole, like if there are two machines in a network, like they are talking to each other, right? This talks about it, right? This logs it, right? So that's what network events is about, right? And then device registry event, which is very, very important, because as you know, most of the attackers and adversaries try to, behind the scene, once they get access to an environment or machine, they try to do device registry changes, which is basically you not knowing what's happening, things get changed, and one next time you reboot the machine, it might not work as expected. So for that, you can always use device registry event to look at, right? So what it contains. Let me device registry event, take one. And as I mentioned, it's going to log up everything possible here. And if you look at registry set value, it's exactly give you the entire node of where the registry key was there, what kind of value type, value name, what value it is set to. So basically, you really have an audit trail of your registry, Windows registry, right? In this table. So those are the fundamental tables, as I said, right? Device comes up with once a machine is either onboarded manually or through Intune or any other method, right? Once it is onboarded, they start pulling this data, and depending on these data behind the scene, basically all the different alerts and incidents are created, and this is also given to us as an end user or as a customer, that we are free to leverage all this information to build our own custom detection and write a rule around there, right? Let's say, I mean, just a very dumb query, I'm going to write a device registry event. I want to create a rule whenever somebody changes device, or maybe what I would do is, let me get to device registry event, and I would say where where registry key contains this. Oh, let me just try to get the actual registry key here. Let me see if I can expand. I would like to expand one of the records and registry key, right? Let's say I want to see anything whenever there's a machine system is modified, right? Take one, run this. And okay, so you need to do a little tweak whenever you're playing with slashes, and then do it. Obviously this comes up and we find, okay, this might be something like, meaningful alert, right? We can go ahead and create a detection rule, and once we create it, right, obviously it says syntax error because it is trying to capture everything in the console as a rule which it could not access. Or let me try again after deleting everything, and you should be able to create basically the rule as you say, right? Recommendation, it's continuous, it's every hour, every 24 hour, when you're going to run, right? So and you're going to say obviously alert title, severity, and description. Even you can write some recommendation action to the people who are handling it, like go to check with the user, run a PowerShell script to gather more information and things like that. And if we go next, I would not severity as low, category, let's say it's a malware, right? It's a description, provide recommendation, not give anything. And you're gonna also, why it is throwing up error, I didn't give the detection name itself. uh, and you can say device, and it also lets you do some entity mapping. That means whenever an alert is created out of that query, it is going to show up the entities involved in that, right? And then if I go to then, and you can see that what kind of action you want to take. For example, I want to isolate device, I want to investigate package, run scan, and restrict app. So whatever Defender native possibilities are, you can take that. So I definitely not, let's say run antivirus scan. Next it, scope. You can also run it for all devices, or you can scope it whatever you have seen, like with the device groups. And I will create device group, slowly, in just few minutes, right? So after that, you click on webinar demo or any of the device groups and say next. And as usual with Microsoft standard practices, you're gonna see that the list of details, whatever you have here, and that's gonna create an alert. And if you are using any SIEM like Sentinel or any other SIEM and you have connected different alerts, that's gonna give you the alerts, right? So with that said, let me cancel this. So this is all about you can do with advanced hunting to get the data, to build some queries. And obviously the fundamentals are you can share the query link with someone else who is kind of, you can copy this query link to your colleagues or anybody who is investigating and helping you investigate it here. And you can also export if you're looking for some sort of reporting here. Now, once you are here with advanced hunting, next thing is we talked about the automatic remediation or automatic investigation, right? So for that, what we need to do is we need to create something called device groups. That means we need to go to, if I scroll down a bit, we need to go to the settings, right? And we need to go to the settings and I'd say I'd go to Defender portal. Sorry, not Defender portal. I would go to Defender for endpoint, and in endpoint we have something called device groups, right? Obviously I have to create it. Let me try to add one. So I'd say add one webinar demo 2, and when I add that, I am just selecting these options here. So how much require approval for all the folders, temp for a folder, fully remediate threats automatically, whatever remediation select and level you want to select. And this also depends on your network infrastructure or your device infrastructure, right? And which one you want to do automatically, right? And then go to next. In devices you can really configure, you don't need to select. Let's say I would say starts with something called demo, right? And show preview. So obviously I have two devices and it's going to show up. So whatever happens, this is going to kick an automated investigation, automated response with full remediation. And that should be it. And also what you can do is you can limit the permission, how to do this. Like for example, only users in this group can do this or see this device group and things like that. Because I'm an admin, I can see all the things. But if you really want to have, let's say, a very sensitive group of user, if you want to assign a couple of people should be able to see that, that's where you assign that, right? And then if I submit, it's going to create the device group. And let me cancel this for now. There's also another way to go here is if I go to permission in the left navigation. If you look at, because a device group is kind of creating a subset of machine with specified permission or action labels. So you go to device groups, you would see the same settings here. Like as I say, I have two fully remediated things over here, right? Now let's say this is done, and then what happens over here? Any alert comes in, any incident comes in, that's gonna show up and it will automatically starting the investigation, you know, and it'll keep on going. As an analyst, whatever we should do, Microsoft Defender does it for us, right? So that's what it should look like, right? And then if we look at another thing, I'm just trying to get one automated investigation started, and let me show you that how it looks like. So if I look at this, this is where actually it is not fully automated. I'm just started that, and because the device is not out of, within the reach, it just said that it is waiting for the device. But this is how it should be like preparing machine for investigation. It captured all the data. And then if I go here, it's going to say complete coverage, check if discovered by automated investigation. It is checking machine group is fully automated, right? That's what it does. So it's going to go on and do its stuff for automated investigation, right? Let me go back to the previous screen. Now, the next thing is anything you take, any investigation or any action you take, right? If you want to go to, you would go to Action Center. Give me one moment to find out. I'll reduce this. Give me one quick minute. Action Center, right? And if I go to history, that's going to show up some previous actions taken. And I would say go to 30 days. That's going to show up some more details over here. Okay, there's nothing. Do I have anything pending? Nothing. So I'll go for submissions. Obviously, you can see in any of the places, whatever is taken action. And then, yeah, these are the things which are like taken way back, and that's how it should be. Now, one thing to remember, right? We talked about advanced hunting. Now, advanced hunting data stays there only for 30 days. But if we talk about alerts, if it is available here, right? This data and the investigation data, right? This is gonna stay there for you can keep it till 6 months as well by design with Defender, right? Now, the next thing I'm going to show up is threat intel, which is earlier known as Defender for TI, and I would go to threat analytics. And by the looks of it, or as a first look, the idea here is wherein Microsoft does its all research and gives you a screen of surface wherein you can see exactly what's happening across the industry and what are the current threats are there and things like that, as you can see here, right? And if I go to Intel Explorer, right, it's gonna show up the same details over here with Intel Explorer. And by the time it loads, the thing to understand here is basically that these things are already captured in Defender, and this is actually, for example, as I say, right, you can really investigate on particular threat and explore things like that. Now, if I go to threat analytic, get me Intel profiles. By default, there are a few things created, and it talks about the full details of an attack, right? And if that has an indicator, as you see, as and when you go, right, there are indicators available. For example, I take brashed iPhone, for example. So this has really good amount of indicators available around. If I click on indicators, right? Okay, so this obviously you need to get some sort of Defender for TI to get access. But having said that, this indicators, right, either that will be IP address, hash, or whatever it is, right? They will be used by Defender, right, to create alert and things like that. If anything of these sort of things are seen, your Defender will create an instant that these are the details which is seen by this out of this threat analytics. And if I go to threat analytics, and the quick way to see is it is going to give me results, right? How many things are there and things like that. So, and as you can see, ransomware, extortion, so it's a fundamentally total list, and then we also can see how many are available or how many are here in our environment. So if I click on one of them, I would say overview, analyst report. And if we go to impacted assets, obviously we might not see anything because all our devices are pretty new, right? And obviously not falling in this criteria. That's why there is no there. But if you really want to get for one of the one of the activity profile, you can actually go and look at impacted assets to look at further details, and then what are the assets impacted and how you can patch it up or fix that, or close that loophole around that, right? So with that said, I will just quickly summarize whatever we have seen. So we have basically looked at devices to store device inventories and how why it is called device inventory. And then we jumped on to advanced hunting to look at whatever data is available as a part of device inventory or Defender collect. Those are all available as a part of raw data within these tables called device events or device file events, or any table starting with device specific details. And then we can also create detection rule if we want to, which will be again forwarded to any other SIEM tool or any ticketing system you're using to based on the configuration you do. And then we also saw that how we can create particular device groups, to go to, let me go to settings, permissions. We can create device groups to fully remediate or partially remediate some of your devices, depending on the naming convention, depending on the OS type, and obviously depending on other factors, you can add all of them, right? So these are the factors where you can create a filter for full or partial remediation details. Now, and they obviously save some time and take actions on behalf of an analyst, and this should be only done wherever we're fully confident about the playbook we are executing. Let's say there's a brute force or there's a malware found, we know that for sure going to run antivirus scan or anything else, places like that, right? And at the end, we looked at threat analytics, and also if you look at particular threat analytics and one particular threat profile, we're going to see if there is any asset within this environment which is affected by the threat, right? So with that said, I will give it back to Vignesh again.
Thanks, Samik. Did you happen to cover the extended detection and I'm sorry, the extended detection and endpoint detection and response, EDR2.
So yes, so that's why I said
Okay.
like if I go to set permissions here, that's in the device group, right?
Okay.
So depending on what kind of device group we are doing, let me try to create one, or I say add device group. This is where we see the remediation levels, right? This is what all the
Mhm.
remediations can be done automatically and set depending on what permissions you're assigning. And this happens once any alert comes in. This is going to happen step by step,
Okay.
right?
All right.
All right.
Okay, let me get back to my slides. We're pretty much at the end of our session. Um, So folks, so that's pretty much what we wanted to show for today's session. So these are some useful links which I'll be pasting under the description section when I'm posting this video on the on our YouTube channel. I'll also paste this in the Teams chat now. And if at all you have been following us and you've been following all our demos, and if you're trying to mimic the same in your demo environment, these useful links will be of high help to you. So and even if you're not going to do that also, I would highly urge all of you to go through this, read through this, and understand what you mean by all the capabilities that we just spoke about. So with that, thanks a lot, folks. Thank you so much for your time. And the next session, as I said, will be on getting started with Microsoft Defender vulnerability management. This is a capability of your MDE plan too. But then since we want to specifically talk about it, because there is a lot that we want to show under this, so we are parking this for the next session, which is planned for 3rd August 2024. So please do visit us for the next session. And now, if at all you have any questions, you can either unmute or put in the chat. And please also scan this QR code to give your feedback. And if at all you have any follow-up questions, you could also post that using this Microsoft form. Thank you so much, and looking forward to see you all in a different session. Thanks.
I think one thing I'd add, I think Pura have a question. So when automation takes effect on a machine,